Under the direction of Dr. Arthur C. Bartner, the University of Southern California Trojan Marching Band opens us here today. We have another Trojan episode where we get to talk about some of the past, even the present, maybe even the future about USC athletics and its influence on so many different people. Steven, of course, being one of those. I'm Harper LeBel. Logan Landers is our producer and engineer, and you are watching Take 5 with Steven Travers. And today our guest with Steven is Terry Marks, a good friend, a pitcher on one of the mighty SC Trojan Rod Dado-led teams, and a man who certainly appreciates and loves the spirit of Troy, conquest, fanfare, and the SC fight song in a way that touches your heart a little bit deeper than others. But before we get to that, I would like to say we are in partnership with The Nine Golf. If you're a golfer out there and you are looking for a virtual experience where you're in a studio and you can get to analyze your swing, your exit velocity, your spin rate, all of the different compatible portions of your game to improve it without even needing a coach to be around. Take advantage of the TrackMan 4 system and the Golf VX replay that allows you to play courses from literally all over the world. It's The Nine Golf here in Duluth. You can go to The Nine Golf, spell out nine, N-I-N-E, the9golf.com for details on memberships. You can book a bay, you can get lessons, club fittings, you name it. Their inaugural fall tournament is September 6th, so you may want to sign up for that now to be a part of it. One day, there are going to be people playing virtual golf in tournaments all over the world. We're working on it. It's getting closer. But for right now, the September 6th virtual experience is a 3-round minimum where top prize is a Wicked Weed Brewery bag, as well as an experience to go to their facility in Asheville, North Carolina. Second place is an Elway Elite Driver, a Callaway, Elite Driver. And there are other prizes, including ball sleeves and 10-hour passes to the9golf.com. And if you do like golf and you want to be a part of a great charitable contribution with the Haney Harvest House, the Lee Haney Games are November 1st at the Gaslight District in Duluth, Georgia. The Country Club of Gwinnett is hosting the charity golf tournament a couple of days prior to that. So on Thursday, October 30th, sign up. It's going to a great cause. You can play a tremendous round of golf, enjoy the experience, and then help support the Haney Harvest House as well. The Lee Haney Games include bodybuilding, calisthenics, deadlifts, dance competition, cornhole, and fit kids. So if you have somebody's between 6 and 12 years old and you want to watch them run around and compete against some other kids that are also fit, please go to leehaney.com or the leehaneygames.com for details. You can get that at the leehaneygames.com. We appreciate you being a part of that. Our guest today, Steven, is a man that you have known since you first got to the campus at University of Southern California. You met in that very first few minutes that you were there. Steven, do I want to give your story and get side A, or do I want to get the truth from Terry Marks and get his side of the story? Do we want to do that first? How do you want to divide this up today?
Well, first of all, it's a tremendous honor, and I'm very happy to have my good friend Terry Marks with us today. It's been a long time coming, but I know Terry has a lot of stories and a lot to offer. And boy, a man of immense, had just a tremendous part of my life, a tremendous influence in my life in just about every way you can imagine, spiritual, athletic, academic, and a person who is remained one of my very best friends from the very first time I met him until today. And so, Terry Marks, I want to thank you very much and welcome you to Take 5 with Steven Travers.
It is my pleasure to be here, Steve. To your point, it's been a long time coming. Great to be here. Great to be with you as well, Harper.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. You make your home in Sandy Springs, but you're a New Yorker, Rochester. Is that correct, Steven? I'm sorry, Terry. Steven told me that you're from Rochester, but you're a Red Sox fan. Is that allowed?
Yeah. When I grew up in Rochester, there were really 3 fan bases in Rochester. One, you had a lot of Yankee fans just because it's New York State and the Yankees are downstate from there. You also had a lot of Orioles fans because Rochester was the AAA affiliate for the Orioles for years, and
Okay.
so there was a big concentration of Oriole fans there as well. And then I'd probably say third, there were a group of Red Sox fans because Rochester to Boston, Rochester to New York, it's almost equidistant. And a number of us got caught up in things in 1967, which is dating me considerably, but that's kind of when I got the fever, and I think a lot of people did.
Do me a favor, stick with the Orioles for just a second. As a complete outsider, the Orioles and their organization back in the late 60s and Earl Weaver and going to the World Series a couple times, they were the bomb. I don't see why anyone wouldn't want to root for them. Small town, very small market compared to some of the other places. But because of the ties with Rochester, with a double or triple A team, you've got the ability to kind of connect with the team that was on the rise, weren't they?
Oh, they're tremendous. I mean, the 1971 Rochester Red Wings, which won the Governor's Cup and then the AAA World Series against the Denver Bears, I remember it well, featured Don Baylor, Bobby Grich, Johnny Oates, Terry Crowley. I mean, a lot of great ball players. And then even after that, you had guys like Doug DeCinces, Eddie Murray going through Rochester. So
yeah.
there
Mark
was
Belanger,
always
right?
a ton of talent.
Mark Belanger another one of those?
Yeah, a little bit before that was Belanger. But
okay.
Yeah, just tremendous teams. And I mean, that's when the Red Wings would draw 7,000 a night. I was telling one of my nieces the other day about 10-cent beer night, which no longer exists, but the ability to like work hard all day cutting the grass, you get $1, you give it to a guy, you get 10 beers. It's America right there.
Yeah, you couldn't get the cup for 10 cents now. It doesn't exist anymore. But when did your love for baseball turn into a passion that would lead you to playing, I would imagine, Little League at the highest level, all-star appearances, going to high school, and then eventually getting a chance to play at the next level in college?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's funny. It was just always there, but I vividly remember my first professional baseball game, and that was in 1967, walking up the ramp at what was then Red Wing Stadium, later Silver Stadium in Rochester, New York. And what struck me more than anything were the colors. Like, you have to remember, and when I was that age, the only baseball I ever saw was black and white. And so I don't think it really registered in my brain that baseball could be any other color. I half think I walked up that ramp expecting everything to turn to black and white as soon as I got to the top. And I was shocked. It's still ingrained in my mind. So that was a visual image I've never forgotten. And then, my first big league game was actually in Baltimore, an 18-inning game against the Red Sox in 1968. And then, it just sort of took off from there. But I've loved the game ever since. I still love it. And in fact, I'm going to go see the Braves get beat inevitably tonight by the Marlins. So I still keep up with it.
Yeah. Pitcher, shortstop, catcher. Did you do a little bit of everything when you were growing up playing?
Yeah, pitcher mainly. I played a lot of first base. It's funny, in high school, I stopped pitching for a while, but I couldn't really hit that well, but I could always throw really hard. I didn't know where it was going, which is why you've never heard of me from a baseball standpoint. But ultimately, I was moved to pitcher and kind of locked in there.
Found your niche there, right? What was your high school experience like? Was it just if I had only known later what I could have done, if I knew how to work, I went to a high school, we didn't have a tee, we didn't have a batting cage, and no wonder I couldn't hit a curveball. I didn't see any of them, but I'm not complaining. I'm just saying if I only would have, could have, should have. Any regrets in terms of, man, I wish I had worked on my conditioning or, maybe some arm recovery so that I could throw more often? Anything like that?
I mean, honestly, I think I just wish I had a clue. I mean, I really, in retrospect, I had no clue. And the facilities were like a kid today playing junior high school would laugh at our high school facilities. And we're lucky if the grass was cut, let alone the field leveled. It was terrible. Now, I'm not complaining. It's just a lot of fields were like that.
Sure.
When I grew up. It was an all-male Catholic high school in the Northeast.
Oh, boy.
Not a lot of money put into baseball. And I just didn't have a clue what to do. I just kind of had to figure it out on my own. Some things I got right, most I didn't, but so be it.
You mentioned you went to an all-male high school. It was Thomas Aquinas Academy.
Aquinas Institute.
Thomas Aquinas Institute. Thomas Aquinas, the one of the great philosophers in Christian and Catholic history, but that's a different story. But you always told a story about the priests leading you in a football game, which you've always described as being more or less combat. Why don't you talk about that experience in high school?
Well, I hope that there are people listening to this podcast that are under 30, because this will be very entertaining to them. But when I was in high school, we had a tradition. It was the Friday after Thanksgiving. Every year we would play the Potato Bowl. It was either the Potato Bowl or the Spaghetti Bowl. The name would change depending on who won the prior year. And the game was the Irish seniors versus the Italian seniors in full tackle football. Not touch, not flag, full-on tackle football, no pads, no helmets, no nothing, refereed by the priests. And it was a tradition that went on for years, and it was fantastic. And so, that was not unlike a lot of traditions back in those days. Things were a little bit more physical in high school in 1978, I think, than they are today, for better or worse.
I can imagine the rules are there are no rules, which is a great way of how you do it. But were you allowed to at least have a mouthpiece in case, one guy really didn't want to lose his two front teeth?
Only if you wanted to get mocked the rest of the week.
Yeah, exactly. Right. If you want to, you big pansy. Water or salt? What were you given on the sideline as fresh refreshments?
Whatever you brought.
Yeah, you had nothing like it. I get it.
Oh, no. No,
so I would have called it the Turkey Bowl because it's the day after Thanksgiving, but it was based on whether the Irish or the Italians won it. And the Potato Bowl, for example, if the Irish won it the year before, and that went on. Was it for seniors only, or could you recruit and bring in the really stud sophomore that came in and was big enough to represent on the offense or defensive line?
No, unfortunately, you were limited to the seniors, and so that's what you had to, just to keep the roster size manageable.
Terry, was it ethnic, as in Irish versus Italians?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. It was the Irish kids against the Italian kids.
Oh, I could. It's just a recipe for disaster.
Oh, it was.
Let me switch this to Fenway Park and Carl Yastrzemski, because I know that's just an enormous part of your life. And you talk about the colors. And I finally experienced this just a few years ago, seeing Fenway for the first time. You were a kid. You go to Fenway Park. Carl Yastrzemski is your guy. It's Carl Yastrzemski. It's Bill Spaceman Lee. It's Fred Lynn. It's all these wonderful ball players. What an experience. Talk about that, if you would.
Well, walking into Fenway Park is like walking into a museum, and the colors there, I keep talking about colors when you walk into these ballparks, but they just absolutely jump at you. The green monster, the green grass, the bright white uniforms with the red trim. It was just, I don't know. I think one of the things that's really underappreciated about baseball is the aesthetics, the historic aesthetics, which, by the way, I don't think we want to go down this rabbit hole, but if you ever want to talk about these City Connect uniforms, I'd be happy to offer an opinion on them.
Yeah.
They're abominations, but I'll leave it at that.
I was going to say, do you want to waste our time with that? But no, if you have an opinion, please let us know.
I'm just, some knucklehead decided, well, I guess kids don't watch baseball because the uniforms aren't cool enough. Okay. Anyway.
So they made them even less cool. Who would want to wear the Padres teal and pink? It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
They could put them in sequin garters, right? You could sell a few sequin garters too. Well, who cares? It has nothing to do with the aesthetics of baseball are important because the game has been played at the major league level for 150 years, 140 years.
Yeah.
And those images conjure up memories, and those memories are incredible for people. And I don't care if you're 65 like I am, or if you're 35, you still remember the first time you encountered the game if you love the game. And I think that some respect should be paid to those memories. And by the way, I'm a big fan of I'm not a dinosaur. I love the pitch clock, all of it. The game, the pace of the game is better now than it has been. But my God, can we not just appreciate some of the aesthetics? What's better? Look at that. What's better than that uniform?
That's as good a uniform And that's as good a photo of a baseball player as I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
Terry, you're talking about baseball. So this is an interesting point because you're a baseball guy, but you grew up also rooting. You're Irish Catholic. You come from a blue collar family. Your father worked in the Kodak factory, and you were a fan of the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, and you were not a fan of the USC Trojans. But a funny thing happens. Your team, the Red Sox, are populated by stars who were USC Trojans, and you're a baseball player. So talk about how you're rooting for the Red Sox, but there's Fred Lynn, there's Bill Spaceman Lee, there's guys like that, and you can't help but notice that they're coming from this school out west that you have been taught to despise, but slowly but surely you realize you're a baseball guy, and it leads you to the University of Southern California. Talk about that journey, if you would.
You know, ironically, in 1967, when my dad wheeled in the black and white TV so we could watch it while having dinner and watch the World Series, his comment was, "We got to watch the Red Sox because they got this kid Yastrzemski. He's a good Catholic boy from Notre Dame," and which he did go to Notre Dame for 2 years. He didn't graduate from Notre Dame. He graduated, I think, from Merrimack College. But you're right. I grew up a Notre Dame fan. My dad was a Notre Dame fan. Every Sunday was Lindsey Nelson, Notre Dame football highlights from the day before, the condensed games. And it was like a religion in our house. But ironically, as time went on with the Red Sox, their best players were SC guys. And probably no one more so than Fred Lynn when he burst onto the scene. I think I first took notice of him in September 74 when he was called up. And then in 75, you couldn't take your eyes off him. And it struck me, okay, here's a guy from SC, this school that I've kind of always hated because they're the only team that ever beat Notre Dame in football. And then I started to look into it a little bit more. And you started hearing about, well, the next one is going to be this guy named Kemp. And oh, by the way, they've already got this guy on a left-handed pitcher on the staff named Bill Lee. And didn't Seaver go to SC? Well, they must have something going on out there. And so it sort of became the forbidden fruit in my house. Like I would watch every year. I'd watch SC Notre Dame, and like every Catholic kid in our school, pull for Notre Dame. But that something about the sunshine, the cheerleaders, it began to tug at me, and that's one day I told my dad I got a call from SC, and that's where I was headed. And he was happy. I mean, he knew I was going to play baseball at Notre Dame. Back then, Notre Dame did not have much of a baseball program, so it all worked out. But it was a big success in our house.
Excuse me for interrupting. I'm thinking from a competitive standpoint, from the football, it really is take your side. You're going to either sit in the room with us, you're going to sit in the other room, because if you don't cheer for our guys. But from a baseball perspective, you can't play baseball in South Bend until at least March, and by then the California teams have already played 40 games. So I see the difference. For you to be able to be exposed to that and recognize that, did you take a recruiting trip? Did Dado fly you out?
No, actually, I wasn't that highly recruited. I was at I took a year off from school to go down to Winter Haven, Florida, and I played on a kind of a barnstorming team with Denny Doyle, Blake Doyle, and Brian Doyle. The three of them had a camp down there. So I worked at the camp, played on their barnstorming team, and wound up getting recruited through a connection to a guy named Ron Vaughn, who was an assistant coach at SC at the time. So a couple of calls were made, and that's how it came about.
How old were you when this happens? 18, maybe 19, something like that?
Yeah, I was 19.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're down in Winter Haven, Florida. Yeah, it must have been rough on you there, right? With the weather and the beaches and,
no beaches. Winter Haven is the
making a couple bucks.
It's the furthest city from any beach in all of Florida. That's Winter Haven, Florida.
Okay, I didn't know. I'm sorry.
Literally.
Yeah. Well, being a Rochester guy, you probably had plenty of folks that were down there. What do they call them? Snowbirds that, go down for certain parts of the year. They enjoy the winter down there, and then they go back up once it warms up in New York. I know a lot of Canadians, Maine, Vermont, everybody. That was the place to be, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Rochester is one of the least likely places to find a baseball player. I mean, it is when it's not cold, it's gray. put it that way. And it just, there's not summer there. And so, if you want to develop your baseball skills, you need to get somewhere where you can play a little bit more often than 4 months a year, which is kind of what you're limited to up there.
All right. So Terry, you entered the University of Southern California. You're in the baseball program. The coach is the legendary Rod Dado. It's still a period in which USC is very strong. They had won a national title as recently as 1978. You're there with players such as Mark McGwire, Randy Johnson, Jack Del Rio, and others. It was a very competitive time. Talk about playing baseball for USC. Talk about Mark McGwire. Talk about Rod Dado, what this was all about.
Well, Rod was something else. But the thing I remember was that I was kind of being used out of the bullpen, and it was early in the season, and we had a non-league game against Cornell. And I thought, well, okay, this is, and one of the assistant coaches said, yeah, you're probably going to get the ball start against Cornell. And I thought, well, that's great, because it's being from upstate New York. I actually knew two guys on the Cornell team. I thought, this is perfect. What a fun game to start. And turns out Rod didn't give me the ball. He gave it to this freshman, this redheaded freshman, who came in as kind of a two-way player, but frankly, we hadn't seen much indication he could hit yet. And Mark McGwire took the ball, went out and threw a pretty good ball game, beat Cornell, I don't know, 6-2, something like that. It didn't take too long after that he kind of found his stroke, and Rod knew a hitter when he saw one, and there wasn't much more pitching for Mark McGwire, just enough to take my start from Cornell, I guess. But I've
was he 6'3" and about 147 pounds? I mean, he was skinny as a rail when he first got there, wasn't he?
He was, yeah. He was skinny. But I'll tell you what, if he wanted to focus on pitching, he probably would have been a good one. He had a great traditional delivery. I don't know. I mean, back then, there weren't even guns at every game. There were guns at a lot of games, obviously, that were scouted. But I would say he probably sat 90, 91 as a freshman with a really good delivery. So, and a good breaking ball as well. So I think he could have been a very good pitcher if he wanted to. But you're right. He was tall and thin, and but boy, when he hit, he had quick hands, and the ball just came off his bat differently than it did anyone else's.
Yeah, very unique stroke. And then he also hit probably every other ball out onto either the tennis courts or in that parking lot that's just out there in the outfield. Back in those days, if you were in center field, you'd have to need a neck brace just watching some of the balls head out into the tennis court.
Not just kidding. That is what it was like.
He broke the Pac, I think at the time, Pac-10 home run record in his sophomore year, and I think he broke it again in his junior year. And I mean, I don't know what, no one knew anything about exit velo back then, but Mark McGwire with an aluminum bat in circa 1982 to 1984 was a very dangerous thing.
Yeah, no kidding. Oh my gosh. But Randy Johnson's on that club too, right? Randy, a little different, different character, unique to himself, a kind of a quiet guy. But again, another 6'10", about 100 Mark was 140 when he first got there. Randy was probably 151 pounds maybe when he first got there, right? Just a long, skinny arm kid. And but he could throw. Goodness gracious, right?
Yeah, he quiet. I just remember him being a quiet kid. And, what they used to wear, not iPad, but there was an earpiece they used to wear to listen to music all the time. He had headphones on. Kind of kept to himself. Unorthodox delivery. You can see in the picture right there, kind of short arm the ball initially. Which, by the way, they teach now. Back then, they tried to break you of that habit.
Mm-hmm.
But and a little bit, I think he would tell you he'd spray the ball all over pretty good. But man, once he figured it out, I mean, he's the greatest left-handed pitcher in the history of baseball.
Pretty much. Gosh, yeah.
Nothing less than that. So yeah, he was. I think I saw him pitch a game against UCLA. I think he threw a one-hitter or something like that.
Yeah, we were at the game.
Yeah. So you didn't know if he was even going to get through the sixth inning. But when he did throw strikes, they couldn't hit it.
Terry, what was it like for you being a kid from the New York area and having your rivalry between the Yankees and let's say the Phillies, or you mentioned Baltimore, to going to a place where we hate Stanford now, or the Berkeley Bears, or nothing's worse than playing the Bruins and losing a series to them. Arizona and Arizona State obviously were the competitive rivals. What was that like for you, just learning these different schools that, you know what, I don't have anything against Tucson or Phoenix, but I know the school does, so now I do too. What was that like for you?
Well, I just remember almost getting into a fight in a bar in Marina del Rey shortly after I got there, because I had that could have been for any number of reasons. I see Horace, my buddy there, snickering in the corner. But in this particular case, it was because I had, I don't know, I guess an SC t-shirt on or something. And this guy comes up to me and he says, "Hey, I went to your rival." And I looked at him and I said, "Oh, Notre Dame." No, not Notre Dame. And I thought for a second. I said, "Okay." Now you have to remember, this was in the era of Don James and some pretty good Huskies football. I said, "Washington." And he started to get really pissed. And he said, "No, I went to UCLA." And it never really crossed my mind that UCLA was a rival.
Cal Southern Branch.
Yeah. It really didn't. I mean, growing up back east, the USC UCLA game would be on usually like the week after the Notre Dame game, but I didn't really care about it. And it seemed like SC would kind of thump them most years. And it never crossed my mind that it was a rivalry. Now, if there are any Bruins listening, rest assured, I recognize it now and I appreciate the rivalry. But as a kid out of Rochester in 1981, it was kind of news to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and like I said, Stanford and Arizona State, all these other pack rivalries that you had to grow into and learn about, and I would have thought, yeah, Huskies. Yeah, no kidding. Warren Moon back in the late 70s, and Randy Vanderveer was one of the Kurt Marsh were a couple of linemen that played for them. And I knew enough about him to go, hey, this is going to be a serious tote here for the Trojans to win. But from a baseball perspective, it's completely different. Oregon and Washington State, no one respects their programs, at least not now. They used to, they had to grow from them. And SC was already an established program. Hey, when was the first time that you were called Tiger and you looked around and go, yeah, he got me?
Yeah, I think the first time I ever saw Rod Dato, I was called Tiger. And the last time I ever saw Rod Dato, I was called Tiger. The only guy that I remember him not calling Tiger was McGuire. He called him Big Mac.
Really?
He was worth remembering. The rest of us probably weren't. So
that's
Tiger.
That brings to mind, Terry, there was one of our best friends. I know you remember, his name was Tony Pitaro. And God rest his soul, Tony is not with us anymore. But Tony was an intellectual, a student at USC, an enormous baseball fan who attended every single baseball game. In fact, I think he went to every practice. And so we went to every game, and we were just fast friends. And he tells a great story that he was at a game one time, just sitting in the stands, and Dato walks past him. And again, he was not a player. And Dato says to him, Tiger, you're doing a hell of a job down on the JVs. I'm going to call you up to the varsity. I'm going to give you a scholarship next year. I think he promised him a ride. He was just Tiger. That was it. I mean, Harper, that was what everybody was, whether you were Bill Lee or Fred Lynn or, maybe Big Mac was Big Mac, but everybody was Tiger. Okay, now this leads us to this point in which God and the universe, in his infinite wisdom, bring Steve Travers and Terry Marks into its orbit. And this is the Pioneer League in 1982. Terry, you signed with the San Francisco Giants. I am on the back end of what started to be a somewhat promising career until I had a torn rotator cuff courtesy of a Johnny Lewis and his unbelievably bad decision making and planning in the Appalachian League. Not that I'm still thinking about that.
No.
Now I'm on the back end, nursing my arm injury. I'm with the Oakland A's in the Pioneer League at Idaho Falls, and we come to be aware of each other playing professionally. Now, talk about the Great Falls, Montana. This too must be a real culture shock for Mr. Marks, coming from Rochester, courtesy of Los Angeles. Now you're in the Pioneer League. Tell me about that.
Well, I just remember I had been warned that it's the worst travel league in all of professional baseball. The distances between the cities were the furthest. So by definition, the bus rides were the longest. And the clubs back then were in, they were the Billings Reds, the Helena Phillies. We were in Great Falls. The Dodgers were in Lethbridge.
Correct.
The Expos were in Calgary. The Blue Jays were in Medicine Hat. So you had 3 teams in Canada. The A's were in Idaho Falls. And I just remember this. We were crossing the border on our way up to Canada for a series against, we had all 3, Calgary, Lethbridge, and Medicine Hat on that trip. And we had a Dominican shortstop, Felice Espinal, and Felice did not have his passport. So what was starting out is, I think, like a 9-hour road trip turned into like an 18-hour bus ride with no end in sight because of the being stopped at the border. So it was things like that I remember most about the Pioneer League. It was not for the faint of heart, and you couldn't wait to get out of there, I guess, one way or the other.
Yeah, I think your end of the league was a little bit worse in terms of travel because of those Canadian teams. Yeah, it was. Boy, in fact, for us, I think it was even further. I think we were further south. And certainly Lethbridge. We had a guy, Reggie. What was his name, Harper? Was it Reggie Williams, a friend of Vincent's?
Yes.
Yeah, he played for the Lethbridge Dodgers, and he's now a coach as a scout now, I believe. Anyway, he was on our show, and I had a game in which I was pitching, and there was a fight with involving Mariano Duncan in Lethbridge, and Reggie and I were out there, and there were a few fists being thrown, but none actually thrown with anger. It was a typical baseball fight, but he remembered that. But yeah, I recall some of these trips, and the Canadian prairies, boy, I tell you, you think that Kansas is flat. It's nothing. Kansas is like the Rocky Mountains compared with the Canadian prairies out there. Edmonton, Lethbridge, Calgary. It is, they call it the prairies, and there's a reason for it. It really looks that way. It's very gray. So yeah, you're right.
It was a great experience. I do remember too, the playing against the Butte Copper Kings.
Yeah. Oh my God, what a terrible place that was.
And the miners were on strike, and it was, I don't know, 10-cent nickel beer night or something like that. And it was, we barely got out of there alive.
Were people shooting guns into the air?
I don't remember guns being shot in the air, but I do remember just kind of being covered in beer, sitting out in that bullpen.
Yes. Well, I remember guns. I think we were there for July 4th. So people were shooting guns into the air. They were called the Copper Kings because if you look out beyond left field, it was, if you're an environmentalist, you would die looking at it. It was the worst raping of the land that could possibly be imagined. An entire mountain scraped to the core to get to the copper that was in the mountain. And I mean, you think this is Montana, you're thinking Butte, beautiful, and it's called Butte, which I guess is short for beautiful. This was not a beautiful city, and this is really the Wild West, and I'm not kidding about the guns. So yeah, it was quite an experience. Okay, now this leads to
real quick, Steven, if you don't mind, can I interrupt just to ask a simple question?
Go ahead.
Terry, while you're taking these bus trips, is there a point where you're going, there's no way that there can be a field any further away than where we're going right now? I'm going to Calgary, and the distance from Calgary, even Medicine Hat, from Bozeman, let's say, or Helena, or some of the other cities in Montana. In Edmonton, it's almost like it's on the other side of the earth. It's so far away. It really is a long trip, and you had to learn your patience. Did you grow to appreciate and love the time you got to get your inner thoughts, or was it just a chore and a half in terms of some of those bus rides?
I did not come to appreciate the opportunity to collect my thoughts. It was not only was it 9 hours from point A to point B, there was nothing in between. So it wasn't like you could look out at, and see the world's biggest ball of yarn or something. There was nothing. So no,
Rock City wasn't there, right?
No, Rock City. The only thing I could think of was, I tell you how it helped in one way. I remember thinking, it's not going to be that bad if I get released. It's okay. It's okay. And so I was able to deal with it much better as a result of those bus rides.
Well, you and me both. In my case, I had been accepted to the University of Southern California, and I knew that I could see the writing on the wall, because the season started in Modesto and then went to Bedford and then went to Idaho Falls, each step going lower on the A's roster chart, or the team chart. And the A's actually had a really good, I think every one of the A's minor league teams won their league that year. And we were named the organization of the year by Baseball America, which I think was in its first year. And Jose Canseco was on my team. There was talent, and there was talent in the league. I remember David Wells was in that league. Cecil Fielder was in that league, Mariano Duncan, and a few others. That's the great thing about the internet, is I've looked up some of these names that I didn't necessarily know who they were at the time, but it's like, oh, wow, yeah, look at David Wells was pitching for the Medicine Hat Blue Jays. But you mentioned that you didn't necessarily pay attention to everything. And you see, I think the reason I became a writer is because when I was young, I always had this realization that I was living and doing interesting things, fun things that would be worth remembering. And I didn't necessarily think, well, I'm going to write about it, but I'm going to store it in my memory. And so now it leads to late August of 1982. You have been released by the San Francisco Giants. I have been released by the Oakland Athletics. But we both have about 2 more years to go to get a bachelor's degree from college, and you are returning to USC. I'm entering USC. So I'm going to take you on a trip down memory lane, Mr. Marks. It starts off literally the moment I arrive at USC. I'm with my dad. He's helping me move. We've been assigned to this place called the Regal Trojan Arms. It's on West Adams Boulevard between Figueroa and Hoover, I believe, sort of the outer edge of the USC campus. And I don't even think I've even put the key in my apartment yet. And I'm walking up the stairs, and I have my dad with me, and this guy with an East Coast accent goes, "Hey, how you doing? I'm Joe Kondak." "Hey, how you doing, Joe?" Tell me about yourself." "Well, I've been out of school playing professional ball for a couple of years, and now I'm returning to USC, which is a school I always wanted to go to, but couldn't get into or didn't go for various reasons. And now I'm finally here." He goes, "You ought to meet my friend Terry Marks. He's just like you. He played for the Giants." And at that moment, you arrive. And you were about 6'3", 220, very athletic, very muscular, a shock of black hair. You're wearing an SC baseball t-shirt, gym shorts. You've got socks, and tucked into the socks is a can of Copenhagen, and you are chewing Copenhagen and spitting it into a Budweiser can, I believe. And your face is a map of Ireland. And Joe introduces me to you, and you are also introduced to my dad. And we have a conversation, and we realize that we have a lot in common. And you start talking, and very shortly thereafter, you come up to where I'm staying, and you say, hey, when you want to go to a frat party? I go, you don't have to ask me twice. We go to this frat party, which is just down the street. And this is where you introduced me to all the USC baseball players. And in particular, there's a guy, Mark McGuire, who's there. And the talk is that McGuire had just been, had gone from a pitcher to a first baseman. Dato had asked him to do this, and he'd sent him to play for the Anchorage Glacier Pilots, where he just hit 435 to lead the Alaskan League in hitting. So you remember this party and this event and the fact that McGuire was suddenly this kind of a cause celeb at USC.
Yeah, of course. I mean, that was, I distinctly remember meeting you on the steps of the Regal Trojan and comparing notes. It was kind of like it was very interesting. We kind of eyed each other. You played, yeah. Who? A's, yeah. Giants. You got released, I got released. But let's go drink beer then. There was nothing to do. And so, and I think it just kind of continued that way for 3 years, it seemed like. But I do remember, I didn't go to a lot of frat parties. I was never in a frat. And so I usually would wind up sneaking into them or, tagging along with someone that was invited. But yeah, those were great days. I mean, I don't know. USC was the best decision I ever made for a whole host of reasons. And the relationships that I have still today are a big part of it.
Okay. Logan, if you would, put up the book Trojans Essential, which was a 2006 or 2007 book that I wrote. And this book the foreword was written by Terry Marks. And I tell a story in this book, and I think I embellish the story, but it's a great story. But it involves you arriving at USC from Rochester. You've never even been there. You get off the plane. You've got, I don't know, maybe $40. You're not exactly flush. There's the book. And you take a cab to the USC campus. You finally get out. You pay the cab driver, and you go to get some food at the 32nd Street Market. Tell us about the odyssey of that trip to the 32nd Street Market.
Well, first of all, it's probably worth noting that I had never seen the campus of the University of Southern California. I never set foot on it. I'd seen very few pictures of it in my life until the day that I arrived to enroll and get my apartment. So, it's funny today they talk about helicopter parents. It's one thing if your parents haven't seen the school, but the student never saw the school. No clue. I just knew by reputation that we hated it most of our lives. And there I was. And yeah, so I got this apartment. It was Portland West was the apartment. It was, I think today you'd call it a dump. Back then you also called it a dump.
Yeah.
And I needed food for it. And so I went to the 32nd Street Market, which was different from anything that I had experienced in growing up in Rochester. It was like LA was just faster.
Yeah.
It had more of everything.
And how smoggy was it?
And this is a true story. I got there in August of 1980, and it was not until February of 1981 that I knew that the San Gabriel Mountains were right there behind downtown Los Angeles. I swear to God, I was sitting in LA, sitting in the bullpen at Dato Field for a game, and I looked over my shoulder. The Santa Anas had to have been blowing, and it pretty hard back then because the smog was a lot worse 40 years ago than it is now. And it was like this set of mountains grew. Like, how does that happen? Did it rain? Mountains grow like that? They literally appeared out of nowhere. So the whole experience as a newcomer to LA was wild, and it was different back then. The world was a lot bigger back then. It's much smaller now, right? You see everything in real time, multiple times. People travel everywhere. Well, this was all new to me. So Yeah, comparing Rochester to LA is like comparing, I don't know.
Okay.
I don't have a good analogy.
I'm going to tell the story the way I wrote it in Trojans Essential. And the chapter was called Terry Marks Says the Lord's Prayer and Becomes a True Trojan. Okay. So
I
the
don't
way
think
I tell
up
it,
to my knees, by the way, but go ahead.
the way I tell it is that you go to the 30-second market, you buy your stuff with whatever money you've got left. If you recall, you could enter the market on one side and come out the other. So you have inadvertently, you come in, I guess, on the east side and you leave on the west side. And you start walking towards your apartment, and very quickly you are completely lost. And not only are you lost, you're sort of venturing beyond the zone of acceptable geographical place at USC, and you're in neighborhoods that aren't so good. And it's 100 degrees. It's extremely smoggy. You haven't eaten. You've been chewing Copenhagen all day long, and you start to faint. This is how I write it. And this is my story, and I'm sticking to it. And so the way I write it is that you then drop to the food, said the Lord's Prayer. Oh, I recall at first your reaction, the way I write it, is that you were thinking to yourself, oh my God, I have died and I've gone to hell because I have abandoned the school of my youth and my Catholicism of Notre Dame to attend, go for the temptations of California and everything that Los Angeles offers, instead of my Catholic faith. So therefore you say the Lord's Prayer, close your eyes, and somehow God leads you back to the Portland Street apartments. So that's how I wrote it.
Well, then that's what happened.
Okay. Now, the origin story of my nickname of Horace B. Manners.
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
Okay, so it's Steve Travers in 1980, circa 1982, 1984, was one of the most colorful, entertaining people on the planet. And it probably still is today, just with a more youthful zeal. Yeah, and there we are coaching the USC JV team in, I don't know, 83, 84, something like that.
And by the way, it almost looks like your legs are crossing over each other. It's real close. So thank you for, I'm not going to unsee that.
We're close, Harper.
We are drinking Rod Dado's beer in Rod Dado's office.
That's Rod's office, and that's Rod's beer.
That's right.
And, it tasted sweeter.
Yes, it did.
I was thinking about that, not getting that Cornell start when I took that beer and drank it. It tasted great.
Yes. Yeah.
But anyway, Steve was, I mean, just, I don't, bigger than life in every way. Like, whatever you were up for, Steve wanted to get there first. Like, I don't think I heard Steve say no to anything ever. So anyway, Jim Murray wrote a column. Steve would remember the details more than I, but there's something about the big horse. So we'd call him the big horse. And somehow horse kind of morphed into Horace. And then one day we were at a party, and I don't know exactly what you did, but you did a lot of what you used to do back then. And I turned to you and I said, it's not just Horace. It's Horace B. Manners, and the B is for bad, dude. And it stuck. And for 42 years, he is, to me, he's still Horace B. Manners. When I call him Horace. When I write to him, I send him a note, say, hey, Horace. And of course, that requires explaining to some folks, but he's still Horace and always will be Horace. And there's so much stuff behind that nickname, none of which I'm allowed to talk about on this podcast. It's just golden.
It's almost Las Vegas. What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. And some of these stories, even just barely touching it, Terry, you're going way too far in terms of keeping it clean for our podcast audience, right?
He had a black leather jacket.
Oh,
And
yes. Yeah.
it was the biggest, like it was even big on him. And we just called it dead cow because it looked like he had thrown a dead cow over his back and was walking around with it. It was massive. And that was just part of the persona. Boots, a lot of big boots, big leather jackets, and big personality. I'd love to tell some of these stories, but we never get to do this again, so I won't.
Well, for someone who doesn't recognize, most of Los Angeles, the state of California, is a semi-arid, it's a dry desert environment where the temperature change in the day, it's 85 and it's very comfortable. You want the AC on in the house, but at night it can get down into the mid to lower 40s, and you need a leather jacket to keep you warm. So Horace brought his jacket along with him. Now, you may not have needed one, but he brought his, and it was just there because everyone in California may need something at midnight or 1 a.m. to keep them warm.
Well, he's a practical guy, so I can't argue with that.
Yeah, the logistics make sense, don't they?
Well, yeah. And along those lines, when you're talking to Harper, you're talking about how hot it is during the day. Terry and I roomed together at the Regal Trojan, and we had Western exposure on these big windows that you could look into. And the way we blotted out the sun was with empty Copenhagen cans that at one point got to the point where it covered the entire window, operated in a pyramid until it covered the whole window.
How many Copenhagen cans can you get before they just naturally start to weaken and tip over, and you have to reset them? Is there a number of how many you've got to have?
We never found it. We literally never found. I dip 2.5 cans a day at my
wow.
Peak. Yeah, which I do.
All right, for every Copenhagen person I know, Terry, did you ever go through this type of a conversation? If it reaches $1.25, I swear to God, I'm never going to have another dip again. Yeah. If it goes to $1.30, that's it. I swear on a holy Bible, I'll never have another one again. Did you ever have a price fluctuation conversation with yourself like that?
Oh, of course, and ignored it every time it went up.
It sounded good for you to say that, but next thing you know, it's $1.85 a tin, and you're still going through 2.5 a day.
Well, the great thing about the 32nd Street Market, the thing I did like about it was you could buy it by the roll. And
yeah,
10 or 12, I forgot.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You get a whole sleeve of them. Yep.
Volume discount.
And I guess the great thing about that is you only had to go once in a while to get a new sleeve. And the bad thing is all your friends knew that you had a sleeve, so they'd come over and visit. And next thing you know, 5 of your tins are gone, correct?
Yeah. Yeah. Horace B. Manners. He was one of those guys.
Really?
Oh.
He bogart all of your tin? Are you kidding me?
All right. But I may have bogarted your tins, but I made up for it by more, as far as I know, if I recall correctly, correct me on this if I'm wrong, but I believe I introduced you to your wife, Cecile.
You did. You did introduce me.
That how that came about.
Well, there was a party. Well, first of all, I'd seen her in the bank before, and I thought she was the most beautiful girl on campus. I was convinced of it. She was a sprinter, and she had sprinter's legs. We'll just leave it at that. And so he had a party at his apartment, which was just across from mine and down a level. And I don't even know how this party came about. It was probably like.
Let me correct you. It was a USC film school party, and you were paid to work the door.
No. That was later. I met her in your apartment, and I sat in there. We talk about it to this day. You had a small get together.
Okay.
She and her friend, who went on to have a great career with the Securities Exchange Commission,
Tamara Rubinoff. I had a tremendous crush on her. It was not returned.
Great person, great friend.
Best looking girls in the school, Tammy and Cecile. My God.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so they were there, and
they're in Steven's apartment, and you're not there. How did you get over there?
I went.
Yeah.
But what I did was, I saw who at the time was just this girl I was interested in. I saw her there, and I was kind of like a little almost intimidated. So I thought, well, I'm going to just act like I have no interest at all. So I was sitting on the couch reading the LA Times the whole party. And she then smashed the paper. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But she made her presence known, told me I was the most boring person she'd ever met in her life. What kind of an idiot reads a paper at a party? And she was gone. But it is true that he introduced me to her by virtue of that party. Later, I was bouncing at a party that she showed up at, and I decided I kind of wanted to leave with her to have a drink. And I you were there. I said, hey, you got to take my place bouncing, or else Amy. And so
that's how I thought it happened. But I'll adhere to your memory on that. Okay.
There's one more. Before we forget, Joe Condash, you didn't mention anything about Joe. Was this guy who lived next door to us, and at the time he was working with this young struggling actor. Do you remember who the young struggling actor was? He's working on a TV show with him. I hadn't heard of him. Kid named Tom Hanks.
I was going to say Rob Lowe or something like that, right? Wow.
Yeah.
Tom Hanks. Yeah. He worked with him for a while.
Well, there was a rumor when we were in school, and I think I asked you about this and you couldn't confirm it, but there was a rumor that Tom Cruise had enrolled in school and was going to attend USC, and then Risky Business hit big, and suddenly he's a movie star, and he didn't go to school. So that was, I've never gotten to the bottom of that. Now, speaking of celebrities, there was we went one time to Barney's Beanery in West Hollywood, and there was a famous rock star who was sitting there, and you approached him. Why don't you tell that story, Terry?
So we had this idea at the time. So we were young conservatives in a town that wasn't full of them, and it was El Salvador. Was it the Contras and the
Sandinistas?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the Sandinistas. And around this time, every sort of big event around the world, or any movement, there would be a song for it, like Live Aid in Africa, Feed the World, or Do They Know It's Christmas Time? Like there was something for, I think, AIDS around the time too. But you'd pull together a bunch of big musicians, you'd cut a record, it'd be a big hit, you'd raise a lot of money for a particular movement or cause. So Horace and I are sitting at the bar, pounding them, thinking, no one's doing anything for the Contras.
Yeah.
At least no one was doing anything for the Contras that anybody knew about at the time. But later we found out.
So let's break the Logan Act and approach a rock star.
And so sitting across the bar from us was David Lee Roth.
Yeah.
And so I thought, hey, I got it. Contraband.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Contraband. So I start heading over. I'm I don't know, about 5 beers in. I'm on my way to David Lee Roth and go, hey, David, I got an idea.
Yeah.
Walking to, he looks up from his drink and looking at me like, oh my God, please drop dead or something. And one of his boys stepped in between he and I. And I never got the opportunity to tell David Lee Roth that he should head up this thing called Contraband. And we could raise money for the Contras, which I'm sure would have been a very popular thing in the music industry at the time.
Yeah.
Oh,
okay. How about
the double entendre there speaks volumes, doesn't it? Of it was the 4 or 5 beers first, then the idea, not the other way around.
Yeah.
Oh, either would have made sense in a way. Frankly, I think that idea was wrapped around 2 5-beer sessions. So I think I covered it on both sides. I bookended it.
Well, speaking of beers, there was something we called the Endless Pitcher at the 502 Club.
Woofer T. God, I assume, God rest his soul, he couldn't possibly still be alive.
Well, I can't even tell the story about. Well, anyway, very quickly, we talked about Cecile, and I'm mentioning that Terry was the best man at my wedding, and Terry and Cecile are godparents to my daughter Elizabeth. So I wanted to mention that. But then speaking of Woofer T, there was an event at what we call my second wedding reception. We cannot talk about that. I guess it was a matter of being larger than life. Whew. My daughter really doesn't know the details of this. Boy, you talk about forgive me my trespasses, for I have sinned. But let's not lead into that. But how about the endless pitcher at the 5-0? That's we can. There's a lot of stories you can go, but we can keep it on the level.
Can we? Well, the endless pitcher at the 5-0 was just that. There was a guy, Woofer a very large human being, Penn State grad alum. He could have been a grad, right? Penn State fan. Let's just stick with that.
I don't think he had gone to college a day in his life.
Yeah. And we never had to pay for a beer at this particular place. And shockingly, it went out of business.
Yeah. Well, when our friend who will remain nameless later took it over and continued that practice, and today he could be found in one of our larger penal colonies. But let's not go into too much detail on that. But there's another great story, and I've told this on this show, but you have to tell it from your end. We get hired as production assistants by ABC for an Ironman triathlon at Santa Monica Beach. We show up. This involves Frank Gifford and an assistant yelling at you to sort of get off your buttocks and stop socializing with Frank Gifford. Give some details about that.
I just remember it was the Ironman triathlon, and oh God, I remember Frank being there. I remember you calling my buddy Bill Matakis Crow, or
yes.
Ed, you called him Ed the whole time.
Yeah.
Right, because I called
him. Why did I call him Ed? Do you remember?
Well, yeah, his nickname was Crow, and I was calling him Crow the whole time. And finally, after this is for 4 days, and finally turns and says, "What's this Ed shit?" Sorry, I don't know if I can say that. And Horace looks at him and says, "What's your name, right?" I said, "No, it's Bill." "Well, I thought it was Ed Crow." "No, my nickname is Crow." "Well, I knew a guy named Ed Crow." "Well, why do you assume my first name would be Ed just because my name is Crow?" And that was the kind of heavy-duty, high-intellect banter that we used to have back then.
Corey has had life for 40 years.
It was all downhill from there, right? Now I know your name, but get to the Frank Gifford portion of that.
I remember Frank gave us some crap about. I don't remember what he was. He didn't he light us up about something? I don't remember.
I recall he invited us as Trojans to sit down and drink beer with him at 6 o'clock in the morning on Santa Monica Beach, and then we were doing that. We're having a time of our lives. And then a female assistant came by and said what to you or to us? And what did you say?
You're killing me. You gotta rehearse this before. I remember her. She was not happy. What did she say? I don't remember. Okay. You have to tell the story.
I'll tee it up for you. What we did that day, we were either runners or spotters. Yeah. Spotters, I believe, were given walkie-talkies, and we would say, number 15 is here.
Is out of the water. Number 15 just got out of the water. That's
whatever. And that was a spotter. And then runners, I think, ran. I'm really not sure what runners did.
Nobody did.
Runners and spotters.
Or runners.
Yeah, and the as I recall, the young lady came by and goes, "I need runners. I need runners." And we were just sitting there with our legs crossed, 5 or 6 of us drinking beer with Frank Gifford, just looking at her and she's going apoplectic. "I said I need runners." And you said,
"Hey, I'm a spotter, not a runner." Yeah. Thank you. I do remember that. Now I remember why she was so pissed.
Yeah. And we didn't move 1 inch.
21-year-old guy. Hey, I'm a spotter.
Yeah, I mean, and that is USC in a nutshell. I'll say, here's what I've always said about USC. Number one, it's a school that originally had biblical teachings. It literally was built on a mustard field in downtown Los Angeles. Of course, that's a big part of the New Testament, as Christ talks about the seed in a mustard field and it grows into something great. So that was USC, it literally was. And then there was the great line by George Patton, which I've always said reminded me of USC. And this is, the King of Morocco says, General, what do you think of Morocco? And he goes, I love it, Your Excellency. It's a combination of the Bible and Hollywood. That was the University of Southern California, right?
USC was it was a life changer for me. Yeah, it really was. It was. I'm the biggest advocate you could possibly find for SC. Still am today. It's a unique place.
Yeah. Well, okay. So you get out of USC, and I'll run this quickly. Your brother is working for Minolta. You go into sales. You start doing well, and it gets to be around 1987. One of our listeners, a fellow USC grad, and in fact a great pitcher at USC, by the name of Phil Smith, would like you to recall this legendary event in which you go to the Coca-Cola company in a very different way than most people start their career. It's a very unorthodox way that you start your career at Coca-Cola. To talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, look, in 1987, I was married 3 years. I had a brand new daughter, and I had no idea what I wanted to be. And it makes me laugh today when I see so many kids that are trying to have everything figured out before they ever have a child. But necessity is the mother of invention, as they say. So the only thing I knew about my time at Minolta was that my particular job, I wasn't very good at it, and I didn't see myself getting ahead. And so I literally wrote a letter to the guy that ran the Coca-Cola bottling operation in Los Angeles, basically saying that I loved the brand, and I did. I loved the brand. I was a sucker for the brand my whole life for reasons I won't even get into now, but they go way back. And I just wanted a job, and I didn't care, frankly, what it was. If there was an opportunity to get in the Coca-Cola system, for me, that would have been the best. And the only thing I added was that, look, I'm in a marketing job at Minolta. I'd make decent money, not great by any stretch, but decent. And I've got a new baby, so I can't start at the very, very bottom, but I'll work like a dog. And anyway, sincerely, Terry. And the guy calls me back and says, so he looked at it and he says, send me a resume and somebody get back to you, and then call back in a week. And so I sent the resume. 4 days later, he calls me and says, what would I want with a broken down pitcher? What really wasn't all that good anyway. And that was how it started. And he said, well, come on and we'll talk about it. I went in, and and that's the funny thing, and I tell my kids this all the time, and anybody but young people that I talk to all the time, never miss an opportunity for a connection. Never underestimate the little things in your life and the ways that they will create connections with people, because that's what leads to opportunity, are those connections. And in this case, it was just some guy that happened to be a baseball fan, happened to like USC, and decided he'd take a chance on me. I went in, I interviewed with him, and he said, okay, here's the deal. You got a good background, you're a college grad, yada, yada. But you got to learn the business from the ground up. So we're going to put you on a truck, and you're going to drive a Coke truck for 6 months. You're going to work in the warehouse, and we'll pay you a little bit more than just entry level. We got that. We'll consider this sort of management training. If you make it, you make it. It's hard work. You might wash out. But we'll give it a shot. So that's what I did. So I traded in my suit and tie, where I was a junior marketer at Minolta, for a Coke shirt that had my name on it right here. And I drove a Coke truck, and I merchandised stores and ran a route in East LA. And by the way, those guys worked their tails off. All the respect in the world, Coke guys, all the soft drink drivers, the people that work in the grocery industry. Eventually, at one point, about a year later, I was moved into a role where I was calling on customers in Southern California, like Ralph's, Bonds, Albertsons, and so forth. And the guy that did this for me was a guy named Mel Leszewski. He himself was a former Milwaukee cop that got into the soft drink business many years before that. And the reason he told me that, you know why I had you do all that, it wasn't just a matter of hazing. He said, but now that you've driven a truck and you've worked in the warehouse, you've done all these things, is that, we figured you had a shot maybe to run something for us someday. And if you ever get there, now people won't be able to lie to you, because you'll know what really happens on the street. You'll know what really happens at the back door of a grocery store, of a warehouse, and so forth. And, for all the glitz and glamour of Coca-Cola ads or whatever, the business, like most businesses where the rubber meets the road, is very unglamorous. And it was the best. I learned more in that year about the business, I think, probably than I learned in the ensuing 5 years. It was a PhD in the soft drink business. And so from there, I had a really enjoyable, rewarding career in the Coca-Cola system. And it was because I wrote a letter to a guy I had never met, and there happened to be a connection I never anticipated, and I got an opportunity. And that's all you can ask for.
If I can interrupt before Steven, there's an interesting parallel here for me. My neighbor, the closest house to me, he's in his late 80s now, but in 1980 he was well into Coca-Cola. He got the first Chick-fil-A restaurant with Truett Cathy, and he would tell me stories about the Coca-Cola way. What I'm hearing from you, Terry, is starting from the ground up, you learned what everybody else does. It's almost as if I have to clean the trash cans out in this job before I get to be in the penthouse or on the 13th floor or anything above that. There's a lesson to be learned, and you discussed that. There's also an aspect that I understand about Coca-Cola is that they want to put you in bottling for a certain amount of time. Then they want to put you over there in either manufacturing or production. And then they put you in delivery so that you can figure out which one you like the best and don't get disappointed or turn the other cheek because you're in a position that you don't fit and you don't want to be in. They let you explore in a way, at least that's my understanding of the Coke philosophy. Was that a part of it for you? And if so, did it benefit you in a quick manner because you started with deliveries and going to stores? Tell us your experience.
Yeah, absolutely. The culture in the system at the time, and I don't know if it's the same way today. I assume it is. Was that lateral movements are invaluable because they give you a much broader base to go forward off of. And so, very often young people in a large company get in the mode of, well, I've got to get ahead. I've got to move vertically. I can't move horizontally. If I move horizontally, it's a harbinger of career death. And that's just simply not the case for a whole host of reasons. One, you're going to learn more about the business and you're going to be more valuable to the company in the long run as a result of it. Two, you're going to make connections throughout the organization that you otherwise wouldn't have made had you not made the lateral move. And three, someday you may decide to leave the company and the knowledge you gain from that lateral move could serve you well somewhere else. So a lateral move should not be viewed as a career being stalled. A lateral move is a stepping stone to future vertical moves with probably higher, almost certainly a higher ceiling. And that was something that was emphasized at Coke, and it was something that, like in my own experience, I did that from sales to operations to finance, and ultimately back to operations for the overwhelming majority of my career. And I was a better operator because I had a much deeper understanding of the selling side of the business, the marketing side of the business, as well as having been a group CFO at one point. So,
and to follow up with that, Terry, I would also think that getting exposure to different branches of the business, any business, not just Coca-Cola, it could be making widgets. It doesn't matter. gives you a greater sense of ownership, I would think, right? I understand the company a little bit better. I understand what their needs are versus the needs of these people over here. And I'm able to tie the knots, so to speak, and connect everybody in a different way to where I don't mind picking up that piece of trash that's on the ground because I love this place where I'm at. I've experienced enough of it to where I want to make it better and do so in a manner where it's in part because of my efforts, and I'm rewarded for that accordingly. Is there any truth to that portion of it for you?
Oh, 100%. Like the breaking down functional silos is a prerequisite to organizational success. And that's one of the things that I learned early on in my time in the Coke system that was really prioritized. You see in a lot of companies where there is a sense of us and them. Well, we're the finance department, we're the human resources department, we're the marketing department.
Yeah.
And there's almost a tension and a push and pull vis-a-vis the other departments, and you lose sight of what the overall goal is. And nothing great happens within a functional silo ever. Greatness happens across functions of an organization when an entire organization is working towards a common goal, and every member of that organization understands how their role contributes to the pursuit of that goal, and they're executing against that. And I never played football at a high level, but that it sounds to me a lot like a high-performing football team as well, right? If you're the receiver and somebody thinks you're supposed to run an out and you run a fade, you got a problem, right? Everybody has to be on the same page. Everybody has to do their job. Yeah. And even though their jobs are very different, the overall organization isn't served well unless those jobs are executed well individually, in the pursuit of a greater goal. And
yeah, if you don't run the right route, the left guard could get really upset with you because he's fighting a different battle to give you the time to be able to get the ball and get in the end zone. So working correlate in a housing market, the electrician and the plumber, they don't really ever talk to each other. In many respects, they don't do each other's work. They would never do that. They can't cross that line, but they're all critical in terms of everything that needs to be done before you throw the drywall on and paint the house. It's just a part of it.
And the one thing I would say about the Coca-Cola system, and again, analogous to a football team or a baseball team or any other athletic endeavor, I think, is that there was never any question about what the goal was. And the goal was winning. Now, how you define winning could ebb and flow a little bit, but winning pretty much meant growing faster than the competition. Everybody knew the competition was achieving your financial objectives and all that. But there was always a sense of whatever it takes. And that's magic. And I think that's why the Coca-Cola system has been so successful over the years, is that there's a sense of patriotism among the employees, or at least there was, at least during its strongest periods. You were a bit of a patriot, and you're a sucker for the brand, you're a sucker for the trademark, and you're willing to do what it takes to win. And when you're doing that, you get lost in the flow, and you love it. It's fun, and it can be really rewarding. So it was a wonderful experience. I wouldn't trade it for the world. And
Terry, we've talked about this in the past. I always felt that you went to Coca-Cola and wanted to be at Coca-Cola because you believed that they had played a large role in winning the Cold War or fighting the Cold War. And there was a great movie called 1, 2, 3, which was all about that. Jimmy Cagney in East Berlin using the Coca-Cola brand to win over the communists. And so we'd talked about that a lot. And also, you got your MBA, and if I'm correct, I believe that, we've all seen, you go to a sporting event and we see a guy, representative of the Ford Motor Company, John Jones, is here to present Harper LeBel with the MVP award for the playoffs, and his award is a Ford Mustang. Were you the guy involving sports marketing who was often doing that at, say, Boston Garden or Fenway Park or other stadiums where you were associated with that city? representing Coca-Cola with the brand of whatever team there was in that city?
Yeah, I mean, we had a general management structure, so I wasn't necessarily in the sports marketing department. I was the general manager of the New England division for a period of time, and so yeah, I presented Dino Raja with his NBA Player of the Month award. The old Coke bottle atop of the Green Monster at Fenway, I put that up. So
Nice.
we did do a lot of that stuff. Probably the most fun experience I had was there was a time when I was the chief revenue officer of Coca-Cola Enterprises, and we got a call from a guy that wanted a vending machine installed at a barn on his farm. And ordinarily, it'd be thanks but no thanks, or we refer it to the local bottler. But in this particular case, the guy was Muhammad Ali, and the barn was the one that he trained in for all of his fights at his house in Michigan. So, and this is the kind of thing that Coke does for you. So because I happened to be working for Coca-Cola, I was the guy that went to his house, oversaw the installation of his vending machine in his garage next to his training ring, and hung out with him in his living room, just the two of us, for 4 hours and talked about everything under the sun. Wow. Me and Muhammad Ali in his living room in Michigan, in a house that used to be owned by Al Capone, right on the Michigan River, so we could get away from the feds. And asking Muhammad Ali, who really was the greatest ever? Oh, what were the Beatles like? With the picture of him up there. How was your relationship with Howard Cosell? What other company gives you the opportunity to do something like that, right? It was great.
Did he want one of those old-fashioned machines that you would have seen in like the 50s or the 60s where you have to reach, there's a little window, and then you put, back then it probably would have been a nickel or a dime, and there's a locking system on rollers, and you got to pull it out of the machine. I mean, just basic early Coca-Cola distribution, right? Is that what he wanted, or do you want the latest, greatest, brand new one with cash and the dollar bill dispenser?
Yeah, I know the ones you're talking about, the old antique ones. They're great, and everyone loves those. But no, not him. He wanted a regular Coca-Cola vending machine, and I told him, I said, "So do you want it set on free vend?" Right? I assumed, and I said, "We'll give you plenty of cases if you want it set on free vend." He goes, "No. Let's charge 50 cents. They're for the guys that work around here. I need to make them."
yeah, make them pay their way. But that's kind of the machine I was thinking of. Yeah, absolutely, something like that. Thank you, Logan, for putting that together. Well, the brand name, even today, Terry, I don't think I can go by a baseball park anywhere, where there's those 4 diamonds that are interconnected with the concession stand that's in the middle of the 4 of them, and they all spit out from that. And on every one of the scoreboards, it either says drink, enjoy, always, right? There's a one word, and then there's a bottle, and it's a Coca-Cola bottle, and it's on every scoreboard that just about anywhere, at least here in the Deep South. That is a part of, we got to get the brand out, and especially early. Early means good. There's loyalty involved with that. Is that some of the campaigning that you did early on when you started working for Coke and in the marketing department?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I mean, that was a big deal. All of those scoreboards, they were basically, the deal was we'll put, X amount of vending machines in the cafeteria or in the gym at the school. And in exchange for that, we're going to put up a scoreboard for you. In addition to that, we'll put up a big scoreboard with our logo on it. But for the schools, it was fantastic. They'd get some revenue from the vending machines, but they didn't have the money to pay for these big scoreboards at their baseball and football fields. And that's where we came in. Now, a lot of that changed, in the 90s and the 2000s around the whole obesity thing. And there was some changes in what was permitted to be consumed on high school campuses and junior high campuses. And so you see a little bit less of that than you used to, but you still see it. It may just be the brand that's sponsoring it is another brand of the Coca-Cola company, like Dasani or Powerade or something like that.
I was just going to say the acquisition of both of those, the Powerade especially. There's no problem with that on school because they're going to drink your competitor's drink. We all know what that one is. So what's the difference? Hey, if you're thirsty, we're in the business to help quench that, right? No matter what it is. And that's been Coca-Cola ever since the origination of the first, I guess you could say, brew, right? The first consolation of the elements and bringing together this caramel dark syrupy thing with carbonated water and whatever else is intermixed with it as well. I mean, the very first portion of the recipe, if you're thirsty, this will help quench it.
Yeah. It was originally it was also a nerve tonic. It was marketed as a nerve tonic as well.
Yeah.
It did have some ingredients that are no longer permitted.
That's correct. Yes.
That's the name.
Yeah.
Terry, tell the Neil Diamond Fenway Park story that was told to you by the guy, your contact at Fenway, the marketing guy at Fenway.
Oh, yeah. It was a good friend of mine, Larry Cancro, was the VP of marketing for the Red Sox for years. I think he runs government affairs for the Red Sox today. Great guy. The story tells us, that's where the whole Sweet Caroline thing started, was at Fenway Park. So they play it every night in I guess it's the 8th inning, still do. And one night, this is going back probably, 20 years or close to it, 15 years maybe, Neil Diamond shows up and he says, I'm going to sing it live tonight. And he didn't tell anybody that he was going to show up and do this. So naturally, the Red Sox are scrambling to try to accommodate this, because it's not like it's the easiest thing in the world to accommodate a live singer with 5 minutes notice, maybe an hour notice at Fenway Park. Anyway, they managed to pull it off, and he sings it live, and he doesn't stop. And he just keeps going and kind of riffing off of it like it's some sort of Vegas nightclub act. Uh-oh. And meanwhile, the umpires are looking at each other like, what the is going on here? And it took a little time to get Neil under control, but they eventually threw him in a jacket, dragged him off or something. But it did hold up the game for quite a while.
Yeah, it's hard to pull, what would you call that, a shepherd's hook around Neil Diamond while he's doing this. Hey, I'm not done yet. I'm not moving. But that happens from time to time, right? One of those embarrassing moments where, no, I haven't played in front of a live audience this big in a long while. I'm going to keep singing, and they're into it, and so am I, even though the umpires don't like it.
Oh, he was feeling it.
Okay, so Terry, you become the president of Coca-Cola North America. What year was this, and were you the youngest ever to achieve that status?
Oh, I don't know about that, but it was 2000 and was it late 2004? Yeah, I guess it was late 2004. I was named at the time Group President North America, Coca-Cola Enterprise. Okay,
so this is really, you're now a captain of industry. You're in Atlanta. You're still a young guy. When I'm thinking of Coca-Cola, I'm thinking of really guys in their 60s before they really get to the top. And you've achieved this in a short period of time. And so talk about, this amazing run that you had at Coca-Cola North America.
It was just, it's like anything else. You've got to be, willing to work hard, and you've also got to be lucky. And most often, luck comes in the form of working for really good people. And if you are lucky, that's usually the form that it takes if it's going to have a meaningful effect on your career. And that was the case with me. I think back on the people I worked for in that system, and the overwhelming majority I'd work for again in a heartbeat. And I don't know a lot of friends that I talk to could say the same thing about their experiences with other companies. But I think it just gets back to what I talked about earlier, the common purpose in the organization, and it attracts similar kinds of people. But it was just a great, it's an all-consuming experience. I mean, it takes all of your time every day, but it's tremendously rewarding. And a
lot of travel, Terry?
Yeah, a lot of travel, sure. A ton of travel. I'd always try to, on a typical week, head out first thing on Tuesday morning, spend 3 full days out in the market somewhere, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and get back Thursday night. That way I'm gone 2 nights, right? So I'm gone Tuesday night, Wednesday night. Sometimes you have to do more, other times you could do less. But that was a typical week because I mentioned that girl I saw on campus at SC. Well, I've been married to her for 41 years. And we had 3 kids together. And as much as I love Coca-Cola, that was always going to be second to my family. And so, I'm sure a lot of people that listen to your podcast can relate to it. When you're working hard and you have a family, you always feel like you're a little bit out of balance. The pendulum rarely rests in the middle. It's swinging one way or the other, and you just have to correct. And it. It's something you feel internally, and you make those adjustments. But it was a lot of work and a lot of fun.
Would you find that the Woodruff family, and it is a family, right? Several generations now, starting with Bob Sr. back, I think he died in the mid '80s. But their willingness to work with you give me everything you got, but I'm also going to take care of you, so that you can take care of your own. That isn't always the case in corporate America. But how did that affect you? You just mentioned, I wish I wasn't on the road so much, but that's allowing me to, my wife and kids we're not hurting for a whole heck of a lot. You know what I mean? The reward for that is there's a payoff and a trade-off.
Yeah, there is. There's no question about it. And I think if feeling good about the people you're working for and with is important. And I remember one guy in particular, a guy named Henry Schimberg, telling me one time, and he was considered a very tough guy. He was CEO of Coca-Cola Enterprises for a number of years during a lot of its transformative time. And we were talking about having to let senior managers go when it was time to cut somebody loose for performance. And we paid pretty good severance packages. And we talked about it one time, and Henry made a comment that it's really stuck with me. And he said, listen, just understand one thing. I'm not doing this for the guy or the guy or gal that's getting let go. That's not why I believe in these big severance packages necessarily to benefit them. Clearly it does.
Sure.
The reason that I'm doing that is because I want the person who has to make the difficult decision about whether or not to let someone in a senior position go, not make the wrong decision for the business because they're concerned about that person's welfare financially. I want that out of the equation, and I want the person making the decision be focused solely on what's best for the business going forward.
Sure. Interesting. Yeah. So that's just one of the simple considerations of many. Hey, you could save a bunch of money if you didn't do it this way. Yeah, but we wouldn't be the same. We're gonna invest in what we feel is best, not only for the company itself, but for the people that work for us. And how long did you have the role as president in North America?
I was there for a little over 4 years.
Okay. And is that a normal tenure, or is it almost like the presidency? You get a 4-year term, and I'm teasing with that. It's not, but you get a lot done in that time, and there's not a whole lot. You don't get to take a deep breath very often, do you?
Seemed like 40 on certain days. But,
okay.
I think it's probably. It's certainly on average or more. I think for a job like that these days, and back then as well. It was a lot of fun. It takes a lot out of you, though.
I would imagine, and please forgive me, I've never been in that position, but are there days where I wish I could just show this guy how to drive the truck and make the delivery with the smile on his face so that I can't do that anymore. I'm the face of the organization, but we need to make sure that guy does his job well, because if he does, that is the grassroots of what we are trying to accomplish, and trying to convey that message in so many different areas where you go, hey, I need a hammer and a nail, but someone else has to do the hammering and the nailing. You're the one that says we need to make sure that this looks as presentable as it needs to for our guests and for our clientele. There's kind of a separation between what you physically can do, but what you need to have done. Was that a difficult portion of the job for you at all?
Oh, I think it's always challenging. I mean, the further you get removed from where the rubber hits the road, then in a sense, the more helpless you feel. You don't get the immediate feedback of your decisions the further you go up an organization, because you're making decisions with a much broader time frame in mind. And so that's why you have to put really good people in the most important roles in the business, and you have to treat them well and ensure that the culture, that you don't lose the culture. Right, the culture is everything in an organization,
I
because
agree. Yeah.
you got 20,000 people working for you. You can't touch all of them, but you have to ensure that the message. Part of that is keeping the messaging simple, crisp, and easily repeated, or else you wind up confusing a whole lot of people, and you have a lot of activity but not much progress.
Yeah, and your ability to represent all 20,000 and not just 19,999, to make sure every one of them is benefiting from the work that needs to be done. Even if you have one that goes, oh, that guy, that Marx he's a jerk. I can't stand him. That's a cancer that sometimes really can eat within a company. No, I'm not a jerk. I'm not trying to be one. I'm actually trying to make you and your livelihood all the better.
Yeah. We probably had more than one of those, but you hope that they focus on the overall job at hand. And I think for the most part, if you treat people well and you're consistent with people, you get really good effort out of folks.
What would it be like if you think real quick before? What would it be like if you had a guy like Horace B. Manners working for you? How would that go? Would that be okay?
If Horace B. Manners was in our marketing department ideating out of the box ideas, I think we'd probably shoot to the moon. Are you kidding me? So it's all about the right person and the right role.
There we go.
Well, Terry, I'll give you were talking about, or Harper, you were talking about, that guy's a jerk. I ran into a guy who worked for Coca-Cola. It's really about 17 years ago. And we were at a street fair or something. He says, yeah, I work for Coca-Cola. He says, do you know Terry Marks? And he goes, I can't remember this guy's name. He was a young guy. He knew you. He didn't know you well, but he had the ultimate respect for you. He said, oh yeah, he's a great boss. I've been here about 8 years, and he's been here about 3. And he's really running the show. He just had the ultimate respect. I can't remember this guy's name, but that's just one example of one of your employees who, had a positive experience working under you. And I'd like to switch gears a little bit to a pivotal period of time. And this is 2009 to 2011. And of course, we are USC Trojans. And during the 2000s, USC rose to a position under Pete Carroll, which I believed at that time they had become the greatest college football dynasty of all time. In fact, I wrote a book called The USC Trojans, College Football's All-Time Greatest Dynasty. And I did not give it that title cavalierly. I really believed that in 2000, it was still Notre Dame, USC, and Alabama, and that by 2005, USC had surpassed Notre Dame, and maybe Alabama was now number 2. But Pete Carroll leaves after the 2009 season. USC goes into NCAA probation because of Reggie Bush. And of course, this always bothered me, because they went into probation because Reggie Bush's father took money from a sports agent so that Reggie Bush could leave school early, which of course does not benefit USC. In the meantime, the quarterback at Auburn, help me out here, Harper, was that Heisman Trophy winner at Auburn 2000? Cam Newton.
Cam Newton.
The story is that his dad gets $100,000 for him to go to Auburn. And they get away with it, but of course we have to pay. And a lot of things happen in college football. We're seeing the result of it today, is that USC falls by the wayside in many ways. And the SEC, a conference where your son Brett played baseball at the University of Tennessee, and you're into sports marketing and advertising and those kinds of things. And there was change in the leadership of the Pac-10 and Pac-12 conference, and it was not for the better. In the meantime, the Southeastern Conference forms their network, and they partner up with ESPN, and they start up these wonderful documentaries called SEC Story, which are just fabulous documentaries. And I had really hoped right around that time that I would be put in charge of making documentaries for the history of the Pac-10 and the Pac-12, became the Pac-12 when Colorado and Utah entered, talking about the glorious history of the Pac-10, all the baseball, the basketball, the football, the Olympic sports, the history of integration in the Pac-12, which was way ahead of all the other schools. So from a marketing and advertising standpoint, what do you think is the reason that the Southeastern Conference has moved so far ahead of USC, and there is no Pac-12 anymore? Was that a major reason, the fact that they partnered with ESPN? What are some of the factors that just and you've seen it with your own son playing at UT, and I saw it. Some of the factors that you see that have separated these two conferences?
Yeah, and look, we talked about it before, that I was involved in some things that gave me the opportunity to have a fairly informed point of view on this. At the time, it's not as informed today as it was, but I think some of the issues linger. One of the challenges that I think that SC faces is that football, in particular, college football, is simply not as important in the daily lives of the people in California as it is in the daily lives of the people in the Southeast. And there are a whole host of reasons for this. And it's not, blue state, red state nonsense. It's nothing like that. It has to do with the fact that, in large part, the Atlanta Braves were the first professional sporting team south of the Mason-Dixon line, and that didn't happen until the 60s. If you grew up a sports fan, professional sports, the closest thing to it was the SEC. It was everything, and it means everything to the people in the Southeast. And in California, that it's just simply not the case. So I think we have to be fair about the culture of the region when we think about the popularity of college football and the ultimate and the recent success of it. Now, that's not to say that USC can't be what USC has often been throughout its history. There's plenty of talent in Southern California. There's plenty of talent on the West Coast for USC to compete with anyone. But it is people don't live and die with college football in California the way they do in the Southeast, and I think that fact sort of affects everything else about the game and the popularity of the game regionally. So I don't know if it is simply a matter of marketing the program differently. Without beating into, I fully expect USC can and will be great again. I don't know when. I can tell you right now, I can't see Cal ever being great. I think Washington is up against it. I think the minute Phil Knight moves on to the Happy Shoe Store in the sky, then Oregon will be up against it. But for a whole host of reasons, I think USC can and will be competitive on a national level with schools in the SEC. But there just aren't as many schools out west as there are in the SEC that are going to that can potentially enjoy that kind of success.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective. I know from the business perspective, Jackie Sherrill, the former coach, national champion at Pitt, he's been at Texas A&M and Mississippi State. He has, on numerous occasions, pretty much defined it like this. It's all going to boil down to the money, and the schools that have the most money are going to all pool together, and the contribution from alumni and fans and season ticket holders and the ability to fill a stadium on a weekly basis so that it looks good on TV is going to be more important than ever. So smaller schools that don't have as big of a stadium or the ability to fill it because there's not as much interest, will fall by the wayside. And it will basically be, college will be a professional division.
Well, Harper, I think that's right. And I can tell you that in 2010, I met with a number of athletic directors in the SEC on something I was working on. And I won't say who said what, but I will tell you that what several of them told me clearly, and I'm paraphrasing here, is that, look, we're not going to make the same mistake with football that we made with basketball. Toledo and Ball State did not build the college football brand. Alabama, Notre Dame, Ohio State, USC, Michigan, Oklahoma, etc. They built the college football brand. So we're not going to have a tournament someday where everyone shares in the spoils. It's going to be restricted to the schools that built the brand. And I think that's, I don't know that people could have charted the course from those conversations in 2010, point by point, to where we are today. But directionally, that's exactly where we are today. And that's exactly, and we continue to head in that direction.
Do you think it'll be a have and have nots, Terry? That's the thing that worries me, is that
it already
is. State. Well, no, I understand that it is, but I'm just saying, let's stick with the SEC. Kentucky, I think they've invested more into their football program than any other school because they want to catch up. They've had the farthest distance on a football perspective to catch up. LSU didn't have that far to catch up, but they spent. Georgia didn't have that far to catch up. They've spent. Tennessee, for example. Auburn might be either or. 2 years out of 5, they beat Alabama, but the other 3 years they lose to them badly. I just don't know how to measure it. But getting back to Kentucky, will they be left out because they're not one of those signature programs?
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know where that line gets drawn. I have no idea. But it's all. I mean, look what happened when the Pac-10. Well, it didn't disappear. It exists today, but disappeared with respect to its form. And those schools moved into the Big Ten. Look what happened to the paydays that UCLA is now getting that otherwise it otherwise wouldn't have enjoyed. I mean, the annual revenue from the TV deals that are available to the SEC and the Big Ten dwarfs what's available to the other conferences. Now,
well, do you know what the revenue was with the Pac-12? I heard it was anywhere between maybe $4 and $6 or $8 million, somewhere in that range per school. Was it that low?
Well, what I do know, I can't tell you what it was immediately prior to the collapse of the conference, but I can tell you that around 2011, one of the big issues that the conference had at the time was that the revenue was not keeping up with the other conferences.
Nowhere close. You're right. Yep.
B, the distribution of the revenue was not proportionate, or I shouldn't say proportionate. It was not equal. In other words, they had a point system.
Yeah.
And so you would get a certain amount of points for how often you appeared on a Saturday afternoon 12:30 game or 3:30, pick your time zone, a 7 p.m. game, a national game versus a regional game. So guess what? Guess who was getting all the money that the Pac-10 had available to it back then? It was USC, because that's the only team that was occupying those time slots on a national schedule. And schools like Arizona State, Arizona, Washington State, and so forth were really eating crumbs.
Oregon State was miffed too, right? They were very upset. Why are we're in the same conference and we're not getting an equal share? What's the matter here?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, I think the first year that my understanding, and if you were still in Atlanta at that time, the SEC network didn't even know what they were doing. They didn't know what to charge for for advertising. They didn't have Tim Tebow and Booger McFarland on the sideline. They didn't know what they were doing. And yet each school got a roughly $40 million, a check. And guess what helped pay for the indoor facility at the University of Georgia that year? And they've been complaining about it. And then SC, UCLA, they get a check for about $6 or $7 million. Mm-hmm. It's a real simple mathematical. If we jump ship and go to the Big 10 or the Big 12, or we're not going to get into the SEC. It's just fundamentally, it's not going to happen. Geographically, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But guess what? The revenue was there, and now they're relevant again. It's a very interesting dynamic the way this has gone so quickly. But I also think, and this is just my opinion, and Terry, correct me if I'm wrong, that the trip for the women's swimming team or the golf team to go to Rutgers or to go to Penn State eventually is going to get to the point where they go, hey, wait a second, we're not making as much money as we thought. We've got to re-geographize this whole thing so where we can, we can make it more feasible for us to stay on the western side of the United States.
Yeah, don't you think that will take the form of separate conference alignments for football and all other sports?
It has to, yeah.
I do too.
Like Notre Dame is independent as a football power, but they play in the ACC, or they've got an ACC schedule. Georgetown, for example, other schools have done it. I don't know if there's a perfect method. I'm still mad at the NCAA for what they did to Reggie Bush and the Trojans, and it makes no sense to me the way they penalized it. So I've done a complete reversal of my opinion of the NCAA, and that they can't screw it up any worse than what it already is. Oh, they proved me wrong again. Yeah. But the genie's already out of the bottle. They can't put it back in. The NIL money, the portal, all these other problems. But if you just get the league situation to where people aren't moving every other year, I think that will answer a lot of questions. And fans will start to come back because they don't know their rosters anymore. They just don't. The players are moving around too fast. That's a long-winded answer. I'm sorry, Terry. I went way out of it with you on that. Sorry.
No, the portal is just out of control, and I think it's the way it is currently being run, which is to say, it's not being run, is bad for college football. And who claims some of these kids go to 3 and 4 schools? Who claims that kid? And that may seem like a small thing, but when that kid needs an alumni connection, is it really very strong in the future? Because not everybody makes life-changing money at the next level. So we'll see how it all works out. I worry about a lot of that stuff. I worry about the impact all this is going to have on the Olympic sports. I think the Olympic sports have the potential to get really damaged by this. And over time, you could see a lot of schools dropping Olympic sports. We're not like the old Eastern Bloc countries where we have state-sponsored institutes that train gymnasts and hockey players and sprinters, and we rely on the university system. And if that goes away, I think we're going to lose something very important to us that none of us are really giving a lot of thought to. So there's a lot of knock-on effects associated with this. It's change, some good, some not so good. We'll keep our fingers crossed.
Yeah. There are a lot of problems, and hopefully we get them worked out. What keeps you busy now, Terry? What puts a smile on your face and lets everybody know that I'm in a good spot in my life right now?
When I retired about 5 years ago, for like a lot of people, I think there was a very difficult adjustment because you're going 120 miles an hour to nothing if you want to. And so it took a little bit of time, but I tell you, I spend a lot of time with my grandkids. I actually provide full-time daycare for one right now. We did for another one a year ago as well. And it's a different kind of challenge, but it's incredibly fulfilling. We have 7 grandkids, and so they take up a ton of time. And, we talked a lot about, and I'm no different than anybody else that had to spend a lot of time at work. You did your best to be a present father, but you always left a little bit on the table. Well, now I get a chance to use that time with grandkids, and it's not that hard for me to resist the siren song of going and doing something quote productive. It's been great.
How old are the grandkids?
They range in age from 4 months to 7 years.
And are the 7, 6, 5-year-olds, are they playing soccer or doing anything? I call soccer at that level, it's basically watching the bees. They all chase the ball, and they're all of them. It doesn't matter wherever the ball is. The bees follow the ball. They go over. It's hilarious, but it's awesome. It's you've got your own chair, I'm sure. Do you get the one that has the little shock absorbers in the back of it? Make it real easy for you to relax while you're watching the bees run around.
Oh, yeah, got to take care of the body, man. A lot of games to watch. I watch it. It's great. My two daughters both played. One played at Auburn, one played at BC, and so they're great soccer moms. And they're watching them go through it as moms is incredible. And my son just had his first. That's the 4-month-old, so I get to see him do it again. Hopefully, he gets a boy too, so he can watch. He can make the same mistakes I made as he tries to develop him as a baseball player.
Now, yeah, your son played, right? Didn't he?
He did. Yeah, he played at Tennessee and played in the Yankees organization for a little bit. He was very good. Good pitcher.
Was he at Tennessee when Fulmer and Peyton and T. Martin, any of the national championship year correlation there?
No, he missed the glory years of Tennessee football, although he tells me they're still ahead of him. So he's a typical volunteer in that respect.
Yeah, they've got their own way of thinking there at Tennessee. It's pretty interesting, but I would imagine that the pressure being off, you get to enjoy with a little different smile on your face, while watching the kids and the family and getting to be a part of it in a different way than you were when you were running Coca-Cola, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. You're just a lot more present. There's you do the best you can, but there's always something on your mind when you're trying to balance a job with family, whether you're running a company or a single mom trying to hold it together. It's just always pulling at you. But now it's just a lot easier to be totally present, and I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Other than balancing the last 4 ounces in a 12-ounce bottle of beer, what do you and Horace? What would I know you guys from? Would it be a love of music? Would your favorite movie scenes? Can you recite all the lines from Fast Times at Ridgemont High? What were some of the great moments that you two guys had back then that you still take care of? Is it golfing? What keeps both of you two guys busy?
Well, I think we have a lot of fun just connecting, and Horace has a gift with the written word, and so we have a text chain going that is, I'll be sitting there and I'll fire off a typical 2 or 3 sentence text, and then within a minute I'll receive a text that takes me a while to scroll from the top to the bottom, full of covering everything.
Does that bother you as much as me? Is when the text has to be broken into the 2 or 3 different parts? There's so much of it. Why didn't you just call me instead of typing all that out?
I just put my phone down and pick up the iPad. It makes it easier that way.
Well, Terry and I have both been workaholics our whole lives, striving for success, different fields. But I can completely relate to your retirement, Terry, and I'm reaching the same situation in my life. I'm doing this, which is fantastic, and it's a lot of fun. But I'm going to be spending a lot more time with my daughter, your goddaughter, Elizabeth, in Vermont. And, I'm going to be at Fenway Park a lot. And my neighbor is Bill Spaceman Lee, and I'm going to be at Fenway Park with Bill, or maybe Cooperstown, or wherever we travel to. So, but I just wanted to say, my God bless you. Thank you very much. I want to be respectful for your time. This has been a magnificent trip down memory lane. And you mentioned this text thread that we have. It's with you and me and a guy named Chris Wildermuth. And I just want to say this. We all came together at USC. And I think, frankly, we're the 3 smartest guys I know. We're extremely well-read. We know history. We often, in these texts, we often describe what mistakes the Wehrmacht made in losing World War II, or, French philosophy, or Socrates and Plato, or military history, sports history. And these are the 3 most intelligent people, most well-read people that I know. And it's 3 guys who knew each other at USC, all of whom were junior college transfers. None of us were the valedictorian of the school, but we've kept our hand in, and it's been a lot of fun, Terry. It's been a lot of fun being your friend, and I really thank you very much for being a guest on Take 5 with Steven Travers today. And it's been a lot of fun.
It's been my pleasure. Enjoyed every minute of it. I hope we didn't bore everybody with our old stories, but it's been great. And I'm sure we'll be back on the text thread parsing the infield fly rule here within the next day.
Yeah, there are always plenty of different ways of taking something simple and stretching it out and making it last as long as it possibly can. Terry, any final thoughts? We've obviously learned a lot, not about you exclusively, but about how businesses run, different ways of thinking, not only in the campus life, but in the professional world. Any final thoughts from you today?
No, the only thing I would say is that it's funny how the relationships that you make when you're very young, some of them last forever. And there's a handful of people in your life that when you reconnect with them, it's like you saw them yesterday, even if you haven't talked to them in a year. And Horace is one of those. And so doing this has been great fun for me. And it was great to spend a little bit of time with you as well, Harper. We know a few folks. We have a few friends in common, I guess.
Yes, we do. Yeah.
Well, let me add, Gary, that your daughter's wedding in Miami Beach in 2016 was probably the greatest wedding I've ever been to. It's a real society wedding, and it was a lot of fun. I was there with Chris and Bill Matekas, who's otherwise known as Crow, and that was a lot of fun. So God bless you and your family and Cecile, and it's been fabulous.
Yeah. Well, I tell my daughters, if you put as much effort into your marriage as you have into this wedding, you're going to be a very happy person. So far, so good.
Yeah. If you invest in the wedding as much as you do the actual or the ceremony, it's a very interesting perspective. Well, we've learned quite a bit here today, folks, and we want to let Terry know how much we appreciate and value what a blessed life he's led with his wife, his children, his grandchildren, his professional, his athletic life, and how that has trickled into a mature man that we can gain some insight, wisdom, and knowledge from. We're all the better for it. So I appreciate Terry Marks being our guest today, and thanks, Steven, for inviting him to be on and for him to accept the invitation. And I didn't even realize it. Now I know that's Ed or Bill Crow. I'm still not sure about that, but I do know that if I call Terry Horace B. Manners, he will come responding, but he'll expect Terry Marks to be on the other end of that invite. Folks, we want to thank you for tuning in today. This has been Take 5 with Steven Travers. We're grateful for Terry Marks to be a guest on the show. Thank you so much for tuning in. We hope that you have a fantastic rest of your day.